Hey everyone, Steve here from 11ish, a channel where we talk about lucrative investment strategies and opportunities based on the requests from the 11ish collective. Today we're going to talk about something fun, minus the inflation risks, the recession that's coming up, and the international shenanigans. If we strictly talk about Biden versus Trump, if Biden wins, what industries might benefit? If Trump wins for a second round, what stocks might thrive under his administration? So if this is the type of content you've been looking for, please hit that like button and let's get started. To start, let's talk about their economic policies. There's a little bit of similarity between them two, and that has to do with infrastructure and confronting China. Infrastructure has to do with transit, road work, and improving our internet infrastructure. In terms of confronting China, pretty much technology, patent protection, that kind of stuff. In terms of Biden, there's a lot about green tech. He is much more forward-looking, in my opinion, about the type of stimulus he wants to take on. He wants to basically help industries that are up and coming, versus Trump, who is more interested in powering up the existing behemoths and helping them grow their business. And in my opinion, his thought is that if you can help existing companies who are already dominating, they'll basically figure it out in a free market. In terms of Biden's approach of stimulating us for our future growth, he's thinking about modernizing schools, he's thinking about ending fossil fuel, and also improving our healthcare via Obamacare. For Trump, again, is a lot more about helping the existing industries that are already winners, right? Because if you bet on winners, you have a higher likelihood of succeeding. Generally speaking, that actually is a fact. So from that perspective, he's probably going to continue to improve our military prowess. He's probably going to tackle war on China in a much bigger way than Biden, in my opinion. And lastly, if you Google Trump's cronies in a unironic way, you'll find the industries that he really cares about. I'm generalizing here, but basically it's old money industries. Fossil fuel, agriculture, construction, airlines. The biggest difference, just to make sure we're all on the same page, is that Biden's initiatives, economic strategy, is to invest into the future. Ideas and industries that will benefit us because these are forward-looking industries. Things that will pay off in 5-10 years, right? For example, education. If I stimulate education, people get better education, you'll see that pay off later. Whereas Trump's strategy is that you find winners that are winners today. Winners have a higher likelihood of continuing to win because they have a record for success. And if you give them money, right, they're going to figure it out. If they think that growing the economy, growing their business is to pivot into a greener approach, then it's up to them. It's not up to the government to do that. And so that is a huge difference between Biden's approach and Trump's approach. It's kind of up to you whether you think which one is right or wrong. But this is a great segue that leads into the conversation. What stocks will benefit if Biden wins versus Trump? First and foremost, because they both are interested in stimulating our infrastructure, IFRA, the US Infrastructure ETF, might be a very interesting investment opportunity right now. Similarly, if you're looking for more specifics, I would look at ERIC. That's for Ericsson, Castle Rock, and AMT. These companies basically tackle internet infrastructures, wireless towers, 5G, that kind of stuff. So I think those are very, very interesting investment opportunities. And also, if Biden wins, I would take a serious look at CEMEX, which is a huge commercial grade concrete company. The reason why I say Biden is because they're ran by Mexican nationals, and we know how Trump feels about the other nationalities. Right? If Biden wins, I will lean very, very heavily into green tech. That has to do with modernizing school, green technology in general, and perhaps fake meat. So for schools, I would look at Chegg, Udemy, and Zoom. They're basically about digitizing and revolutionizing how we look at school as a whole. And I think those are very, very interesting plays. And you know how I love Zoom anyway. For green tech, I would actually suggest that you look at the underlying technology versus making bets on, let's say, car companies. So instead of investing in Tesla, invest in the companies that build the batteries. Instead of investing into, let's say, Honda, invest into the artificial intelligence technology behind it. So for example, EMON and OLED does a lot of the digital displays for a lot of different industries. And so that's very interesting. Graph is a very interesting one because they build LiDAR technology for a lot of existing companies. That's going to be super, super important as cars become smarter and smarter. And I will also take a pretty good look at Panasonic and Samsung because they do a lot of battery technology. I will also look at Siemens because if you remember in the presidential debate, they actually talked about the fact that energy producing windmills are built out of Germany and China. And since they're both, against China, Siemens built giant windmills from Germany. They're one of the top 5 players and totally worth looking at. And lastly, because Biden wants to save and make Obamacare thrive again, I will highly recommend that you look at healthcare insurance companies because they're going to benefit with a lot more customers. So if Trump wins the second round of election, I highly recommend that you move to Jamaica before World War III starts. They are one of the friendliest set of people I've ever met. A great, beautiful country. Their food is, oh my God, so good. But in all seriousness, I will probably look at fossil fuel as an industry. I would think that they'll get an uptick, right? Just to be clear, in terms of morally speaking, I would never invest in fossil fuel because I think that's the wrong direction. But I do think that as an industry, they're going to benefit for the short term. In the long term, I highly recommend you don't do that either way. We also know that Trump is personally invested in pharma. And being that pharma is a really, really old industry with a lot of existing winners, it's pretty easy to pick, right? The 2 that we know Trump is involved in is Regeneron and Gilead. I would recommend Gilead just because they're very, very stable and there's a lot of good things going on for Gilead, just regardless, right? So that's a good safe bet. Lastly, I would recommend that you invest in agricultural ETFs. So that is an industry that Trump cares about a lot and people's got to eat, recession or not. So I think that they'll do very, very well. Plus, Trump is very much a US first mentality as opposed to a global economy kind of a mentality. So I think the US agriculture ETFs will do pretty well. If you're interested in a little bit of a deep dive on which companies to look at, let me know and I'll provide a separate video for that. If Trump wins, I also think Boeing is something that's worth looking at because he cares about airlines and also he cares about the military. Boeing does both. So those are some of the industries and stock picks that I think will be directly affected by whether Trump wins or Biden. Now, if you want to look at stocks that will generally perform well, regardless of who wins, as long as we don't end up in a recession, I highly recommend that you look at remote office productivity and gaming. These are 2 industries that are lit on fire because of COVID, and they will continue to grow because especially remote office productivity, a lot of businesses, they're still trying to work it out, As we extend further working from home policies, more businesses are going to spend that resource to figure out how to be more productive, how to be more efficient. And all of these companies that deal with that idea are going to benefit from it. If you have any questions or want me to deep dive on anything, please leave me a comment. If you have any stocks or industries that you're monitoring right now, I would love to hear as well. Oh, by the way, I'm all about opening a dialogue with you guys, but if you would like to, please leave me a new comment so that I actually get a notification for it, because if you actually reply, especially without an ad mention, there's a high likelihood that I'm not going to see it. So this is what I wanted to talk about in this video. I think at the very least it's an interesting topic. I would love to hear back from you guys. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to working with you next time. Thank you.